The man took hold of the feces on the ground and carefully examined it. He appeared to have discovered something. He then smeared feces on his face and told everyone to smear it all over themselves. They crawl on the ground while lying down. 20,000 years ago, there was a hunt. The yak herd ahead was the target. 3 ants suddenly crawled on the man's hand. He swallowed them without even looking at them. They haven't eaten anything in far too long. The chief issues the command. The men all yell and charge at the yaks. The yaks would not be outdone, and they attacked. On one side were the hungry humans. The wild herd of cattle is on the other side. As the two sides got closer and closer, the opportunity presented itself. Hurling firearms, the yaks' fence is impeding their progress. The yaks become disoriented and instinctively turn around. They dash towards the cliff's edge. The herd is in disarray. Hundreds of yaks plummeted from the cliff. One of the rats suddenly reacts. He begins to strike back. He charges straight at Koda, the tribe's leader's son. He was staring at the ferocious yak. He was tipped over by the head due to his lack of hunting experience. Koda's eyes were wide with terror. The yak attacked once more. Koda was dangling by its horns. Koda was rushing towards the cliff while clinging to the bull's horns. The father's desperate attempt to save his son, he thrusts his spear into the air. Instead of coming to a halt, the enraged yak. Instead, it kept going faster and faster. The yaks approached the cliff's edge and threw Koda off with one head. By the time the clan arrived at the cliff's edge, it was already too late. Koda is clinging to the ledge with one hand. He could have collapsed at any time. His father yelled at him, telling him not to let go. But then the rock he was holding snapped. He was falling quickly. He landed heavily on a rock. Looking at Koda, who was both nearby and far away, the father was nervous. Despite the danger, he wanted to jump down and save him. He was dragged back by a clan member. He informed the man, "Your son is no longer alive, but you must not allow anything to happen to you. As clan chief, you must return us home." The clan then began to gather the prey. From the edge of the cliff, the father continued to call to his son until it became dark. There was no response from below. It appeared that the boy had died. The father erected a stone tombstone the next day. He turned away, overcome with grief. Even though his son was gone, the clan still needed him to keep an eye on them. The father left not long after that. A vulture on the prowl discovered him. Koda decided to make a last-ditch effort. I'm not sure how long it took. He miraculously survived once more, but his foot wound grew worse. He crawled to a pool, thirsty. He drank some muddy water that was 20,000 years old. He then removed his shoes. His swollen foot resembled a pig's foot. He discovered some stones. He positioned his foot in the center. He broke it with great force and great pain. The bone was realigned. He fashioned a fixed brace. He could finally walk now. He dragged his exhausted body up the hill. There was no one there when he arrived. He only saw the tombstone left for him by his father. He was desperate at the time. How could he possibly return home without his father? Some wolves howled not far away at the time. He was instantly paralyzed by fear. In a panic, he began to flee. The wolves were closing in on him. The tree became his lifeline. If he got down on it, he could save his life. His foot was bit by the wolves. In pain, he drew his dagger. The gray wolf was stabbed by him. For the time being, the crisis was over. The wolves spent the entire night under the tree. They didn't leave until dawn. Only the injured gray wolf remained. Koda fashioned his spear from a dagger. He was determined to finish the gray wolf. However, when he heard the gray wolf's cries for help, Koda's heart began to soften. After all, he was a man who would not even kill a wild boar. How could he do this to a helpless gray wolf? Koda decided to save the dying gray wolf after seeing it. The dying wolf lay on the ground. The boy attempted to save it. The wolf's fangs were exposed. The boy was terrified and froze for a brief moment. He grabbed a rope and wrapped it around the wolf's mouth. He couldn't show his teeth anymore. The wolf was picked up by the boy. Alpha was the name he gave to the wolf. Not far away, some hyenas pounced on them. Koda dashed away, holding Alpha in his arms. He hid in a cave. He finally got some shut-eye. He went out the next day and picked some herbs and placed it on his hurt foot. He'd just taken a sip of water to refuel his batteries. The Alpha, however, cried out. Koda looked around to see what was going on. The Alpha had removed the rope from his mouth. He discovered. Koda was terrified. He made an attempt to pass the water. The wary Alpha gave him a grimace. Koda has once again frozen in terror. He kept saying soothing things. The Alpha appeared to understand what he was saying. He gradually lost his dislike for Koda. He started drinking from the bowl of water. Koda discovered some worms. He attended to Alpha's wounds. The wolf had improved dramatically. It didn't resemble your pet dog. The next day, Koda discovered a rabbit. In order to live, he finally succeeded. Koda went back to the cave, getting ready to drill wood for the fire. However, the Alpha began to get excited. He attempted to steal the rabbit's meat. Koda slapped him across the face with his hand. He takes a bite of raw meat, and he declares who is in charge. It appeared that the Alpha had been through a lot. He lay on his back, not daring to move. Koda took the heat. He ate a delicious roasted rabbit at night. The alpha drooled as he watched. Koda hurled bones at him. Alpha devoured it with gusto. He had forgotten he was a wolf. Koda and Alpha had recovered from their injuries after a period of recuperation. He needed to get back to the tribe before the snow fell. He said his goodbyes to Alpha before departing, but Alpha was still lying there, refusing to leave. Koda began his journey home. He hadn't gone very far. He discovered the Alpha trailing him. Regardless of how hard he tried to keep him at bay, Alpha refused to leave. Koda chased him away with a wooden stick. The Alpha inserted the stick into his mouth. He timidly followed. So one man and one wolf set out on their journey home. In the presence of Alpha, the hunting was far less difficult. Every night, he could eat delicious roast meat. The wolf and the man's friendship grew stronger. As the campfire dies out at night, Alpha will approach him more closely. Koda's body was used to keep him warm. The setting appears to be intimate. When he wakes up in the morning, Alpha will continue to lick him, but he stinks so bad. Koda drove him to a nearby river to bathe. They had a lot of fun playing in the river. Alpha even landed a large fish. The wolf and man's bond grew stronger and stronger. Autumn and winter arrived. The entire wilderness is blanketed in snow. Koda was eating dinner at night. Alpha abruptly takes a defensive stance. The wolves are watching them from a safe distance. However, the Alpha made an unexpected move. The Wolf King approached with a ferocious spirit. Koda was paralyzed with fear. Alpha took a step toward the Wolf King at that moment. He addressed the Wolf King. "In the back is my brother. Give me your face, let's forget about it for the time being." I wasn't expecting the Wolf King to leave, but the Alpha refused to leave. He appeared to be seeking Koda's opinion. Koda was certain in his heart. Alpha was not his property. Despite Alpha's reluctance to leave, he ultimately chose to leave. Koda set out on his own journey home. Koda was lonely without Alpha's company. He continued on his way back home. Perhaps it was fate. Koda spotted the Alpha not far away while passing through a sheet of ice. He dashed towards it, ecstatic. The danger was approaching him, unbeknownst to him. The ice shattered all of a sudden. He fell into the river's cold, icy water. He was swept away by the undercurrent. He couldn't find his way back up. His life was on the line. That's when the Alpha showed up. He was up there looking for Koda. Then it took a leap. He attempted to break the ice. However, his weight was insufficient. Koda pulls out the dagger in his arms just in time. He finally broke through the ice with several blows. Alpha lunged at his sleeve. Koda was able to flee the danger. It was a few degrees below zero outside. He shivered from the cold. The Alpha continued to lick his cheek. Koda stripped down to his underwear, which were already frozen, to keep the Alpha warm. He held him with his back to the fire. He still had a bad cold, though. The Alpha did not leave this time. He decided to accompany Koda home. The weather continued to deteriorate. Some hyenas appeared ahead of us. Alpha and Koda were out of control. They were being pursued by hyenas. Alpha and he went into a cave. They thought they had a brief respite. Inside the cave, they are unaware of the presence of more powerful creatures. Alpha adopts an aggressive stance. A black panther appears gradually. He pounced on Koda with ferocity. Alpha charged forward without hesitation to protect him. He was, however, no match for his size. The panther was attacking him. Koda kept his bow and arrow pointed in the right direction. The panther was then killed by an arrow. Alpha stood up when the battle was over. When he saw Koda was safe, he was unable to support himself and collapsed to the ground. This time, Koda recognized him as one of his own. He vowed that he would return him to his tribe no matter what. They proceeded. Koda discovered the stones that the tribe had piled up. He pried the snow away and discovered the markings. This indicated that he was not far from home. The blizzard was intensifying. Alpha was critically injured. Every step he took was difficult. His body had reached its breaking point. Alpha collapsed to the ground before he could get very far. Looking over at his comrade who was fighting alongside him, he just couldn't do it this time. He was picked up by Koda. In life or death, he would never abandon him. I'm not sure how many days and nights he'd walked. Koda's incredible willpower carried him through many snowy mountains. He finally noticed the tribe. However, Alpha's birth and death were unknown. He was exhausted when he returned home. Even his father was taken aback. Koda indicated Alpha with his finger. He begged his father to save Alpha at any cost. When he awoke once more, the first thing he did was go in search of Alpha. Alpha was still perishing. Alpha gave birth to a litter of wolf pups with the witch's assistance. It turns out that on the way home, Alpha was always pregnant. The clan felt moved. Alpha quickly recovered. The wolf pups grew into adults. They were accepted into the tribe. Wolves accompanied everyone in the tribe for the next few days. After a very long time, their offspring evolved into a different species. They were known as wolf dogs. A man and animal healing film. Although the story is brief, it vividly depicts the bond between humans and animals. If you have a pet as well, please ensure that it is well cared for.